hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, we're now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's system is just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God. I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's the.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
Tyreek Hill, I could kiss you. Welcome to another edition of a very happy and upbeat edition of the MHA podcast, at least on my side. The Kansas City wide receivers saved my season for another week, helped me edge out a win over NWA. Fellas, good to have you. I always ask how you guys are doing, but instead, I'm going to tell you how I'm feeling. I'm feeling pretty excited, relieved to to put myself in a good position for next week. I'm going to drink a beer. Todd can't see it, but I may lose next week, but I'm going to enjoy this week. How are you guys doing, by the way?
Good. You know. I mean, I'm still in it somewhat. Thanks to math. Gotta love it. But no, feeling good.
Mikey, what's up?
Good. I'm playing out the string.
You're playing out the string?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Just playing out the rest of the season. No playoffs again.
Well,
that hurts.
You told me before we got on that you had a playoff game, and that's going to be against me this week. Is that right? What did you call it?
Yeah, it's my Super Bowl.
Oh, man. That's not a good sign for me, but I'm glad.
Well, yeah, the other
we're going to hate each other for a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, your other bad sign is there's a black cat behind you. You better watch out.
Yeah, there's Kitty back there. What's up, kitties? You doing all right? He doesn't know what's going on. But yeah, Kitty's hanging out with me. Yeah. So what's coming up on the show? Well, we had some incredible individual performances, a lot to talk about. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was one of the bigger ones. Derrick Henry, we'll get into all that. The playoff picture is becoming a little more clearer as we head into the final week of the regular season. And who wins our Doe Award this weekend? Well, there are a few candidates to talk about. Let's go through some news. There's a lot of injuries.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept.
I'll try to go through these as quick as I can. We will talk about this first note because it's Mikey's favorite news note of the week. Will Fuller, who just had a big week of 26 points, will now have to sit out the next 6 games, which includes 1 game next year, after testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. He was 11th amongst wide receivers in our scoring format. Mikey, is this an appropriate time for you to tell me I told you so?
I'm not one to gloat. You know me. It's just not my style. But I told you so. Told you so. There, I got out of my system.
Oh, man. He was having such a good season. He had double-digit points in 8 of his 9 games that he played in. He was proving me right that I knew he was going to have a good full season. He's going to finish we'll see. I think he'll finish better than 61st is where you had him initially, the wide receiver rankings. But, man, come on, Will Fuller. What's the deal, man?
Taking roids. He's like, I can't stay healthy, so I'm gonna take some roids. That's great, So
it makes sense because roids help with the recovery process. And
there you go. Talk about that all the time, and you talk about that all the time, and especially like in baseball kind of thing. That helps the recovery process. So in football, why not? Will Fuller's like, I people have been talking about me a lot. Let them talk more about me. Take some roids. It's great.
It's just so disappointing. He was having such a good season. Way to go, Will Fuller. We'll keep going off of here. Jonathan Taylor has been activated off the COVID-19 list. Zach Ertz off the injured list after dealing with an ankle problem. DJ Moore looked to have a serious non-contact injury on Sunday versus the Vikings, but he seemed to avoid long-term injury. He's kind of week to week at this moment. Obviously, the Panthers on a bye this week. Daniel Jones, who is the quarterback of the first place New York Giants in the NFC least, left his game early due to a hamstring. He can miss a few weeks. We'll see how that goes. Julio Jones still dealing with a hamstring injury. James Conner obviously missed Wednesday's game or today's game due to a positive test. We'll see if he plays this week. Tua, the Miami Dolphins quarterback, full practice on Wednesday. Currently, he sits on Todd's bench. We'll see if he plays them with Tom Brady out. Josh Jacobs dealing with an ankle injury. He left his game early. He has a chance to play, according to Ian Rappaport. Todd Gurley, who did not play last Sunday, did practice on Wednesday. He's dealing with a knee thing. Adam Thielen off the COVID-19 list. Lamar Jackson could play week 13 after testing positive for coronavirus last week. 49ers could get Brandon Ayuk back off the COVID-19 list. And all of the Bronco quarterbacks tested negative for COVID-19 and should be available with their game against the Chiefs on Sunday. Anything I missed, gentlemen, or anything you want to mention about all that? We'll talk about that Baltimore game once we get to my game. Let's talk about this week in the MHA. In the matchup of the week, Gonzo Cats and Lion Rip. Last week, Gonzo Cats were 6-5, Lion Rip 7-4, both vying for playoff seeding, and Gonzo Cats scored a season high 183 points to mollywop the defending champs by 66. David Pollen ran 30 running backs in that game, so 2 running backs and then the running back in the flex, totaled 84 points. Incredible. That pretty much secures a playoff spot for Gonzo Cats. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. The top team, Cooper's cousin, racks up another big point total, this time 166 points, defeating our buddy Todd there, Butterfingers, who could only muster up 117. Kirk Cousins, he says, I don't need Adam Thielen, and had 3 touchdown passes for 65 total points. Allen Robinson, 23. 8 of his 9 players had double figures, and that one that wasn't double figures, Dalvin Cook, and he had 9. Cooper Cousins has secured the overall number 1 spot and that all-important first-round bye. Todd, do you want to say something quickly about your loss this weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. The fact, I don't know, Aaron Jones must have did something to piss the Packers off. 3 times in the red zone and none to Aaron Jones. What in God's name? Fucking A. I was like, come on, just one. Just get him at the goal line. Just 1 touchdown. 1. No, not as it.
Yeah, I don't know if that 1 touchdown would have saved your hind there, buddy boy.
Well, it just would have made me feel a little bit better. But like 3 times in the red zone and not one. And who gets a touchdown on the running? Jamal Williams, who's on my bench. So freaking A. So,
whoops.
Yeah.
You also had Adrian Peterson on your bench too, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because the previous week he had 1 point. I was like, okay, never doing this again. And then Darrell Henderson, who again, ride to the end, to see, he gets 1 point. So,
well, there's your problem, homeboy. You ride or die with too many of your favorite players. If you're gonna have a mentality, I'm gonna ride you to the end. You're gonna ride it right off a cliff. I'm gonna keep going here. Team also vying for that first round bye is Eaton W's, who makes it 6 straight wins, taking down the Tamales 116-86. The combo of Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen was enough to help him go over the top. Boy, Derek Carr and that Oakland offense let a lot of people down this week against what usually is a pretty terrible defense. But, man, that's gotta be tough to see. Derek Carr running high, and he just 22 points. You want to say anything about your matchup there, Mikey?
No, not really. I mean, it was awful. Pretty much everybody on my team was awful, except for my defense. So, all around, just awful. Awful, awful, awful.
Awful. The Lemonheads keeping their playoff hopes alive after a big win over NWA, 137-129. Tyreek Hill, 44 points. What a big day from him. I'm sure we'll talk about one of the top performers. I have to give him credit because I know we won't talk about it later, but I have to give credit to my running backs, Kerryon Johnson and Frank Gore, who I just agonized between. I agonized between both of those guys on Thanksgiving. Ended up going with Kerryon, and then, of course, James Conner, COVID. I have to throw Frank Gore. 18 points, made a difference. Glad to have him in there. Great week for NWA, but unfortunately just 30 points from Kyler Murray, 3 from Josh Jacobs, who left early. I was sweating this game out a little bit, and I know you guys might have been at work, and obviously I'm working it from home so I can watch the game. I was feeling pretty good, and it was like 3 minutes left, and at this point, Pittsburgh's just running the ball out, right? And so they punt it to Baltimore. They have their third string quarterback, Trace McSorley, because what's his name? RG3 got a hamstring injury. And what the hell does he do? He throws like a 70-yard touchdown pass to Hollywood Brown, and it's 19-14, which means they're back in it. And I'm like, oh, crap. And this is where he's going to rack up the points and then get over because NWA had Claypool in there. And if he got 18 or 17 points, I would have lost. And he had 8 at that point. So just go down there and score a touchdown. So I was definitely sweating it out. Aaron was down here working, so he heard me cursing a little bit. But luckily it didn't happen. Stupid Trace McSorley, third string quarterback, almost ended my season. Luckily I won. But anyway, we'll move on. Another team keeping their season alive is notorious CUP. They squeaked out a last-second victory against Kilgore Trout. Carson Wentz threw up a late-game Hail Mary. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he threw up a Hail Mary, and he has Wentz. CUP has Wentz. At that time, Kilgore, I think, was up by 3, and CUP only had Gus Edwards left for today's game, and I've seen Gus Edwards put up 0 points. And unfortunately, that touchdown pass, Hail Mary, kind of ended things for Kilgore Trout. In the last game, Belt Sanders trying to dig their way out of the basement. They come up with a 154-145 win over bye week, who had been hot coming in. His trio of 49ers, Raheem Mostert, Robbie Gould, and San Fran's defense combined for 42 points. Obviously, Mahomes is incredible. So just kind of going through these standings real quick. Cooper Cousins have secured a playoff spot for sure. They've secured the number 1 overall spot. Eaton W is currently at 8-4. They have not secured the number 2 overall spot. However, they have clinched a playoff spot. The next 3, Lion Rip, NWA, and Gonzo Cats. Based on points, that's how they are. Lion Rip, NWA, and Gonzo Cats. None of them have for sure secured. However, Lion Rip and NWA have massive point totals. So even if they lose and I win and Notorious CUP win, we'd be tied, and the first tiebreaker is points. Lion Rip and NWA are in my opinion, unless something just absolutely crazy happens, but they're probably in. Gonzo Cats currently has 1,577 points at 7-5. I could jump them if I win. I currently have a lead over them in terms of points. Now, obviously, that could change based on what happens, but they're not for sure in. CUP, so if I win, I'm in next weekend. If I lose and CUP wins, they're more than likely in. Todd has an outside chance. He needs both myself, and CUP to lose, and he would have to outscore me by 103 points.
Woo!
So that's a tough ask, not impossible. It's a weird world. Todd can end up having a Derrick Henry and a Patrick Mahomes type of day. But it's a tough ask, but it's not an impossible ask. Mikey's shaking his head no. So those are the kind of the playoff standings. Bye week, Tamales, Kilgore Trout, Belt Sanders, all officially eliminated. Those guys are tanking for Christian McCaffrey, tanking for Dalvin. Who knows, whatever the heck. I know Mikey's not tanking, which makes me sad, but that's okay. We don't want people tanking. We want people going for it at 100%. Anything you guys want to say about the standings before we get into the top performers?
No, I mean, obviously, Dylan all season long, been on, kind of been in not cruise control, but pretty close to it. So, yeah, just that, just a lot of things have to happen. You're right. I mean, hey, the way 2020's been this year, regardless of reality or fantasy and anything, you never know. So, standings could look really different after this coming Sunday. So,
anything you want to say or mention?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge week for a lot of teams because it's not just about getting in the playoffs. I mean, you got 4 teams kind of jockeying in position trying to secure that other bye, which is so important. To be able to not play in that first week, it's such a huge advantage. So, I mean, we'll see who gets it.
Yeah, Lion Rip, and we'll talk about the schedule, but Lion Rip does play NWA. So, and those two are kind of vying for that spot. They both have more points than Eaton W's. So if Kevin's team loses and one of them wins, well, one of them will win for sure, unless there's a tie, but they could jump into that number 2 spot. So a lot riding this weekend. Let's get into the top performers. I'm going to start this week just because it kind of rolls into my MHA trivia. Antonio Gibson, I know he was on the losing end for Gilgore Trout, but he kind of started the week. He had 35 points, just 2 points behind Derrick Henry. He's had a pretty incredible season so far. 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 receptions. And so that's going to take me into some MHA trivia. You guys ready for this?
Hey.
Don't lie.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
All right.
And no cheating. I don't want anybody cheating, okay? So stay away from your, player pages. And Mikey, I know how Mikey thinks, so I'm sure he's on there. But I also know he's not a cheater. So one thing that we always talk about as MHA owners, and I know this is something Mikey swears by, is you want to have running backs that catch passes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Am I true to say that, Miguel?
Yeah.
It's super important. If you look at last year's players in terms of having catches as running backs, we had 6 players with 70 or more we had 6 players with 70 plus receptions. And so I just wanted to see how that was going. I saw Gibson had 5 receptions as a running back. So I'm going to ask you guys the top 5 running backs in terms of receptions, okay? So this is just purely on receptions. Mikey won last time. So Todd, I'll let you go first this time. Give me someone in the top 5 in terms of running backs that leads in receptions.
Dalvin Cook.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is incorrect. If we're talking about receptions, Dalvin Cook, as I'm rolling down the list, he's pretty far down. 6, you got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 with 29 receptions. Mikey, your turn.
Come on, Todd. The first one should be a layup. Like, how could it not be Alvin Kamara?
That is correct. Kamara, who was third last year with 81 receptions. On that pace, really, and he's got 68 so far, 646 yards and 4 touchdowns. For Kamara, that's really where he makes his money, is on those receptions. Todd, your turn.
Let's go with one of my guys, Aaron Jones.
I'm sorry, that is also incorrect. Aaron Jones, going down the list, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, with 33 receptions. Mikey, your turn.
This is tricky. I'm gonna go with a off the board kind of one here, just because it's kind of his position. But I'm gonna go with Naheem Hines.
That is correct. Well done. He's 4th. He's got 44 receptions, also 4 receiving touchdowns. So good job there. Mikey's up 2-0. Todd, you need to get back in here. So.
Well, he's been hurt, but I don't know how many receptions he had before. But McCaffrey.
Oh, I don't even know what McCaffrey's number is. I guess I can look real quick here. Look at my team. I mean, he's had some good days, but shoot. Let's see. You're just gonna have to be patient as I bring up his season stats here. So for McCaffrey, 17 receptions. Go ahead, Mikey, win this thing. Mikey's relentless after losing that one time to Todd. I don't know. I think he's gonna put a fork in him.
Really? You think it made me that mad? No, not really.
You don't like losing to Todd. Don't lie. None of us do.
Yeah.
This is hard. But I'm gonna go with another off the board one.
Oh.
Just because I know they throw to him. I'm gonna say J.D. McKissick.
That's very good. He's actually third with 46 receptions. Todd, your turn. I'm going to give you a little hint. Your last answer, fairly close. Think about that. What do you think I mean by fairly close?
I said McCaffrey was the last one, so
Right.
It's close.
I know Mikey's already smiling. He already knows the answer to it.
Well, I mean, I thought about it, but
really close to McCaffrey.
Who's close to McCaffrey? Like COVID-19 close.
Mike Davis?
Ah, very good. He's actually second in our league with 52. So Todd gets one on the board there. Number 5. I'll give you guys one guess each. You can just yell at whatever, and then I'll tell you, and then we'll go from there. Who's number 5?
I'll let Todd go first.
You know what? I'll go with an off the book one. J.K. Dobbins.
No, I'm sorry. J.K. Dobbins is not one of them. In fact, I don't even think he's in the top 25 because he's hasn't played every single game. So, Mikey, you can win this 4-1 if you can get this one.
I think I'm going to be wrong on this, but I'm going to say Zeke Elliott.
That's close. He's actually 6th. He's got 39. Number 5 was Chase Edmonds.
Chase Edmonds? Okay. That wasn't my other guess, but
What was your other guess?
it was Boston Scott, but
Ooh, I don't know about that. Not even in the top 25. So, yeah, I just thought it was interesting because you talk about the guys that are off the board. They're not guys that we usually see. Now, obviously, McCaffrey's been injured. Austin Eckler's been injured. Kamara's still there. So those are some of the guys. But outside of Kamara and maybe Mike Davis, none of the other guys are going to reach 70. And after we had 6, they had 70 or more last season.
well, I mean, and when you think about it, like, here's what the way that I was thinking and how I got those off the board ones. Like, all those guys are quarterbacks that can't throw the ball downfield. Drew Brees can't throw downfield anymore. Phillip Rivers can't throw the ball downfield anymore. Alex Smith has never been able to throw the ball downfield. And then Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, so can't throw the ball downfield. So there you go.
So, yeah, that was kind of the point of this trivia because I know we always talk about getting running backs that can catch passes. Not a lot of those this season. All right. So I mentioned Gibson as a top performer. Todd, you want to give me one?
David Montgomery for the Bears, 103 yards rushing, 5 receptions, 1 receiving touchdown, scored 23 points on Monday night. Again, David Montgomery, not really, not a high running back, just a high drafted running back, but because obviously it was the Bears, and the Bears are kind of a mess because they don't have a quarterback. But on Monday night against the Packers, kind of balled out a little bit there. So David Montgomery.
Yeah, he's ranked 16th. I mean, he had a dud last week. Mikey was kind of talking about that. No, he was on a bye last week. 2 weeks ago, he had 0, and then he had 4. But he's had some pretty good weeks, a 19, a 16, 3 10s. So he's been solid, middle of the road running back. But I like that one. Helped Gonzo Cats pull out the victory. Give me one, Miguel.
I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson. He's somebody that really, really struggled out of the gate. Those first 4 weeks wasn't very good. You're like, what's going on? And then once they realized that, and I'm sorry, Todd, but once they realized David Johnson was a piece of crap, and then he got hurt on top of that, like his last 7 weeks, with the exception of one stinker in Cleveland where it was super rainy and windy, I mean, he's been amazing. Last 7 weeks, point totals 55, 67, 56, 62, and then 57 this week. He's showing that most of the time he's right where people thought he'd be. He's a top 10, potentially top 5 quarterback. He's starting to play like it, and right at the right time for Gonzo Cats.
Would he be even more better, even higher in the rankings if they didn't trade Hopkins away?
I mean, maybe, but Hopkins is obviously, was the best receiver, best weapon that they had. I think what's happening now is they've realized that Duke Johnson, I mean, he is a receiving back. He can't run. So
Yeah.
they're just being forced. They're not a great defense either. So they're being forced to where he's either got to throw every down or he has to make a play with his feet.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to have to run their offense. So,
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how they run without Will Fuller, huh?
yeah. Brandon Cooks. Yeah, bring it up.
Picked up
Kiki
Kiki
QT.
Tuti. That's right. He's showing flashes, so he might be a waiver wire pickup. I'll just say free Deshaun Watson after Bill O'Brien was gone. They let him go and just let him do his thing. He's been great.
There's that too.
Yeah. Getting back to top performers, we got to talk about Tyreek Hill, don't we?
Yeah.
I
yards in the
I
first
left
quarter.
that one for you.
Yeah, I hope you would. Oh, man. In a situation where Josh Allen only got me 35 points, I thought that was it. James Robinson, he was another one of my top performers who had 24 points and balled out. He's good, man. He had 5 receptions too, but I was like, man, that's it. Even if Tyreek Hill gets me 20, there's no way. And to put up 44 points, he now leads the MHA wide receivers in total points with 209, 26 more than Devontae Adams. Fun to watch. I was hoping for a fourth to make me feel a little more comfortable, but I can't complain. It was about time that I got one of those performances. If I make the playoffs, this could be in line for one of the moves of the year. I had to go trade to get Tyreek Hill, and it ended up working out wonders. So thrilled about that. Todd, another top performer?
It's not a big one, but Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, 16 points, 7 receptions, 75 yards, receiving 1 touchdown, and because obviously tight ends, we talk about tight ends every single year in every pocket, just getting a good performance out of it. Now, granted, the game was kind of a stinker anyway, but he's I think Dallas Goedert's kind of pushing himself over Ertz, because obviously Ertz has always hurt a lot, but Dallas Goedert, kind of been a little consistent, the last few weeks, but 16 points from him. I mean, you get that out of a tight end, that's pretty good. I mean, double digits in general are good, but 16, that's pretty good. So I go with Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, it was in a losing effort, and we'll see. I mean, he has double digits the last couple of weeks, but yeah, sure. Mikey, what you got?
Well, I mean, I don't mean to keep piling on Aaron here, but I mean, most of these performances came against him, and Derrick Henry.
Oh man,
whopping 37. I mean, coming off 20 the prior week. I mean, they're starting to ramp up. This kind of what history has shown us with Derrick Henry. They start getting into November and into December. All of a sudden, his carries start picking up. He had 28 carries a week prior, 27 carries this week. 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, if a running back gets over 30 against you, it's just an absolute killer. It's deflating, and the worst part of it is a lot of that and most of it happened in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
After Sean Watson did what he did on Thursday, and then that happened in that first half of that game, I imagine that Aaron just had to be like, man, what do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to have some we've seen some astronomical games from Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, but it'd have to be otherworldly for him to kind of catch him in that situation. Let me just read you off Derrick Henry. Currently, he's 3rd in our system in points. Here's his schedule for the next 3 weeks: Cleveland, Jacksonville, Detroit, and then even Green Bay, who I don't think has the best run defense, but goodness, that is quite a schedule.
Yeah. Green Bay's awesome.
Yeah, and Gonzo Cats. So, yikes. We got to face him. Watch out. One guy I'll throw out there, just because he was gone for such a long time, but Austin Eckler kind of came right back in. He scored 19 points after missing the last 7 weeks due to an injury. Usually in that first game back, you're not sure what you're going to get, but he had 11 receptions for 85 yards, just 44 yards rushing, but receptions where he makes his money. I know the Chargers kind of struggled overall, but 11 receptions, that's 11 points right out of the gate. So really, it's great for CUP. You might have helped him save his season to keep alive there. Anything else you guys want to mention? Like Nick Chubb was great. Patrick Mahomes, 73 points. He could have had more than 80. I know that score was really close at the end, but they took their foot off the gas pedal.
Oh, yeah. Hands down. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, one guy I want to mention, and this is just to throw some shade at Todd.
Nice.
It came in a losing effort, but Todd traded an old, this guy for a pair of old dirty socks. So I'm going to continue to rib, Justin Jefferson again.
Yes, sir.
22 points this week. He just continues. That's 3 weeks in a row. 14, 13, 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15th in our scoring system, Todd, amongst wide receivers. 15th.
I know.
You didn't need Adam Thielen there. I was concerned because he was actually one of the guys I had on here too. You always worry about, well, one of the top wide receivers is gone. They're going to double team him. They ended up using more of their focus on Dalvin Cook, and that dude just balled. He's a phenomenal player. You didn't want to mention T.Y. Hilton. He had a touchdown, Mikey.
That's his one for the year.
That's his one for the year. Okay. I just wanted to mention it since it was his first. All right. How about some stinkers?
Yeah, Mo, that team sure did suck last night. They just plain sucked. I've seen teams suck before, but they were the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
Who pooped in their pants this week? Mikey, I'll let you go first.
Oh, man. Well, I have to go first. I can pick any person on my team. Like, they're all so terrible.
Yeah. We could just say the Eagles in general, outside of maybe Carson Wentz and Goddard, but
no, I'm
whatever
going
you want to do, man.
No, I'm going to go back to Derek Carr for a second because the matchup in itself was so good, and somehow the Falcons ended up putting almost 30 points up as a defense. I just could never, no matter how much research I would have done, would have figured that what happened in that game would have happened. Like Derek Carr was so terrible. Like I mean, how many times he fumbled? Like 3 times in that game. So it's just like it's got to be one of the worst games of his career, and against a bad defense. Like I just don't get it. Like
and they benched him.
Yeah, they benched him for Nate Peterman.
Yeah. I agree. I had Oakland's offense. I mean, obviously, Josh Jacobs went out early with an injury, but he wasn't doing much good. As the Nelson Aguilar guy, almost nothing. So it was. I don't know what to say about it. You and I were talking about it. Like Falcons defense is garbage, and for them to play the way they did was, you just chalk it up for a bad week or fantasy gods. I don't know what it is, but that just stunk it up. Todd, what's that?
Never trust a Raider. That's what it is.
There you go. Or the Falcons.
Amen to that one, Mikey. Never trust a Raider.
Todd, give me worst performer of the weekend.
I will go with because this matchup between bye week and Bell Sanders is really close, but Ezekiel Elliott only 2 points. Yikes! Ooh. I just feel like every single time he has a bad game, that $90 million that the Cowboys gave him was just it gets stabbed him every time. Like, ow! Oh my God! Only 32 yards rushing, 1 reception for 7 yards, and he fumbled the football. Not really good. I understand the Cowboys there and losing Dak and and injuries galore, but that's that's tough. That's tough in reality and fantasy at the same time. So
yeah, I think with Zeke just 1 double-digit point total in the last 6 weeks in terms of games played. I mean, is this something we should think about for next year? I understand Dak will be back next year, and things could kind of go back to normal. But I mean, isn't this the time for Zeke to be the man? Like, even though I think a lot of us thought, even with Dak going out, that Zeke was still going to be all right. Maybe he wouldn't put up the big totals because the passing game would, open things up for him. But like he's supposed to be one of the best running. He's up there with the Cooks, the McCaffreys, the Henrys of the world. And for him to do what he's doing right now, is that something we have to be concerned about for next year?
Yeah, because the thing too is you have to look at it too is the offensive line. Half their offensive line is either hurt or retired. So that's something, because that was always the thing with Zeke. As soon as he came in the league, was the fact, okay, he's going to be great because he's running behind one of the best lines in football. Well, when you take that line away, the defenses are like,
but based on that rationale,
yeah,
if his guys get healthy, he'll get back to normal next year.
Well, I mean, you got to hope that Tyron Smith comes back. Nick Martin, obviously, they don't have Fredericks anymore. And I think they're right. And I think Landry, I think is their right tackle. But yeah, I think yes, absolutely, I agree with you. If they all come back healthy, that definitely helps. That definitely helps Zeke with the running. But if not, I don't know. That might hurt his, that might hurt his, his stock a little bit going forward. So
what do you think, Miguel? Just quickly.
I disagree with Todd completely. Look, here's the secret.
Okay.
It used to be run to set up the pass. It's different nowadays. Now pass sets up the run. If you cannot throw the ball and you don't have a competent quarterback and that people respect, you can't run the ball. The 5 games with Dak Prescott, Elliott, 25, 19, 16, 16, and 22. After that, garbage except for 1 game. So there you go.
So you think it doesn't matter what the line looks like? It's just it's the fact that the quarterback situation right now is just straight garbage because they don't have Dak, right?
Correct, and those receivers become viable. You have to pay attention to them when Dak's in the game. Without him, you don't worry about him, and you just focus on Zeke. That's what happens.
All right, so going back to the worst performers, one guy that stood out to me was for Kilgore Trout and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had a 2 touchdown week a week ago, but obviously Tyreek Hill did most of the damage, although most of his damage came in the first half. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had a chance in that game to kind of help him run it out, didn't do too much. Just 37 rushing yards, 1 reception. So, I mean, I would say you have to worry about that going forward, but Kilgore Trout out of the playoffs. So, but that was one that kind of stuck out to me. Mike, you have another one?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Raiders because this really hurt NWA badly. He had a chance where he could have beat you, but, his number 1 draft pick, Josh Jacobs, really, really let him down. 3 points in that game. He had been playing really well. He had 4 games of double figures. He had the game where, NWA played me, where, of course, he exploded for 28. And then, he ends up getting 3 points. They got down so far in that game, only 7 attempts, which is his lowest all year. So not a good day for Mr. Jacobs.
He did leave that game early with an ankle injury. As of today, which is Wednesday evening, he had a practice, but he was held out of practice. So NWA may not have him this week. There's a chance, they say. So that was one of them. Todd, do you have another worst performer?
I mean, this was on the winning side against Mikey, but Antonio Brown, 2 receptions, 11 yards receiving, just because, obviously Tom Brady's spreading the ball around a lot, but, that's a high risk, that's a risk reward kind of thing where it's like, all right, it doesn't work out, but only 2 points, that's kind of, I mean, I know it didn't affect Kevin's win, but still, it's kind of interesting.
We have to talk about this because it's fun to talk about. Worst performer that could have cost someone a playoff spot, Kendall Hinton. Interesting story on that because, Mike and I, work in a Metro game. We can't pay attention to what's going on Twitter. I see that CUP picks up Royce Freeman, and I thought, okay, well, maybe someone like one of the running backs, Lindsey or Gordon's, maybe hurt. And then I see him pick up some gentleman named Kendall Hinton, and then I see Mikey at halftime. Mikey tells me that all of the quarterbacks for the Broncos cannot play due to COVID-19 protocols. And so we're like, oh boy, we have another Joe Webb situation where Hinton is listed on Yahoo and most sites as a wide receiver. He's going to play quarterback. Even got a text from Quayne asking, is this okay? He remembered the Joe Webb stuff. And I said, it's not against the rules, so you can go for it. And he almost cost him -3 points. That could have been, I mean, and I don't know if this goes, I mean, he ended up winning, but he could have easily got Doe of the week considering who he benched him for. A.J. Brown, who had 21 points, who's been pretty much money all season long. T. Higgins, even though he had a new quarterback, he had 13 points. But that -3, and I know he won 132 to 117, but, you know, Edwards-Helaire have a better day, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But I think it's interesting to talk about that type of stuff because it's one of those things that rarely happens. This could have led the show off if it would have cost him, or if the dude would have played well and got him 30. But, you know, it ends up being where it is, and it's -3 points.
Well, first of all, if anything for that game.
I'm not blaming him, by the way. Kendall Hinton was in a tough situation.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not blaming him at all.
Yeah. I mean, again, to some degree, that was a joke. The game shouldn't have even been played, but, you know, I know the NFL was trying to make an example, and I understand there's making examples, but there's also just being, I don't know, just being assholes about it. And that's, you know, I guarantee you, if the Broncos were in playoff contention, I guarantee you they would have found some way to obviously postpone the game for another day. But they wanted to make an example, and to me, that's bad. That's bad. I obviously understand the Broncos. They messed up, but I blame the NFL for that, because if it was any other team that was in playoff contention, they would have moved heaven and earth to move the game. So I kind of blame the NFL on that one. You know, I think Roger Goodell was being a douche on that one. So,
anything you want to say, Miguel, before we move on?
No, I just wish you would have lost, because I was looking forward to talking about that earlier, especially because he played him over A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, I was really pushing for him to lose, too. A couple of last ones before I move on. Kyler Murray, just 30 points, one of his worst performances in probably all season. Brian Hill, who had an amazing opportunity with Gurley out, didn't do too much. And Cooper Kupp, just 4 points, 2 receptions after 18 points a week ago. Sam Fran, good defense. All right, so Doe of the week. Who's going to win it this weekend, gentlemen? Give me your candidates.
All right, I'll give you mine. Mine would be Miles. I mean, he was coming into the week, his team was red hot, and it's not like he didn't have a good week. He scored 145, but he lost by 9, and any sort of combination, I mean, of Kenyon Drake or Jarvis Landry instead of Cooper Kupp or Ezekiel Elliott would have won it for him easily.
Yep, agreed. That's a tough shit. I mean, you don't want to bank him for it, but those were two guys. I mean, Drake had been playing well the last few weeks, so take that for what it is. I don't know if any of us would have put Drake over Zeke. I guess you'd have to have some balls, but
I mean, based on what they're playing.
What's that?
Based on the way that they had been playing, you know, I definitely would have thought about it. And Washington's a tough matchup. I mean, their defense has been one of the better defenses this year. So,
but New England's tough too. But what they would have done was take away the pass, which they did, and they won. So take that for what it's worth. Todd, do you have a candidate, or should I just give you mine?
I go because I'll just go with Miles, because that was the closest matchup. I'll stick with that one. You know, Drake over, you know, Drake and Landry. So I go with that one.
Sure. Can we say, Mikey, James White and Murray combined for 39? Does that count?
I mean,
Considering
I
he
guess
got
if
6
you
from
want
Hunt,
it.
5 from Miles Sanders. Now, no one would have made that move, but that was it's not a real candidate, but I just saw that and wanted to mention it. That's a lot of touchdowns between those two guys. My candidate is NWA. They lost by 8 to myself, and they went with Kyler Murray over Justin Herbert. Murray had 30 points. Herbert had 31 completions, 316 yards and a touchdown for 49 points. And I even remember telling Mikey earlier in the week, I even think I mentioned it, because I was worried he was going to start Herbert over Murray just because of New England's defense and that Murray was dealing with kind of an AC joint problem. And I was like, man, I hope he starts Murray over Herbert. I think he's going to have the worst game. And that ended up being the true statement. So you guys feel in bye week still over NWA? Those are the two candidates.
That's tough. I almost want to switch just because, he definitely could have went with Unky Herb. Yeah.
Hey, that's a tough one. Who's your vote, Todd? Who are you going for?
I go with Miles.
I'm going to go with Miles only because it was Allen. Just kidding.
That's not a bad way to go. All right, so sorry, Miles. You earned the dough of the week. All right, gentlemen. So as we head to the last 5 or 10 minutes of the show, what do you guys want to say? You guys can talk about anything you want before we get into the upcoming matchups for this week. What's on your mind?
Who's had the most dough so far this season?
I'll have to tally that up. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I will let you know once the season's over.
Okay.
I know it. I know it's not me because not a lot of my games have been close. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the
Mikey's involved in a lot of blowouts.
Yeah. Then I guess too, we'll have to look to see, how the board, some of the other board bets are going so far this season.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on a separate show, but I did listen to the board bets episode today because I was trying to find about if we had a Will Fuller board bet. I couldn't figure that out. We might not have, but I heard some of this, and we'll talk about it off the show after the show, but we'll talk about it in full once the season's over.
Okay. Coolio.
All right. Well, talk about the upcoming matchups this week. Cooper Cousins, 10-2. They're secured in their number 1 spot. They'll take on 6-6 Gonzo Cat, or excuse me, 7-5 Gonzo Cats. So Gonzo Cats trying to kind of stay in that playoffs. No, they're in the playoff. They're probably in the playoffs, but I'm going to try to jump them if I can come out with a win. Eaton W's 8-4. They'll take on Kilgore Trout. Lion Rip. Well, this is probably the matchup of the week. Lion Rip versus NWA, both 7-5. Lion Rip has 1,736 points. NWA 1,704 points. So relatively close. Lion Rip with the edge. If Eaton W's can lose and Lion Rip or NWA wins, they would jump into that number 2 spot just based on points. Because Eaton W's has 1,648. So quite a bit of a dip. So if Eaton W's want to stay in that second spot, they're going to have to win. Then you have Gonzo. We mentioned Gonzo Cats. Lemonheads taking on Tamales. Oh boy. Eric needs to win. If Eric wins and he's in, CUP needs to win and have some help because I have more points than him. They take on Bye Week, who was hot until this past week and still scored a good amount of points. And Butterfingers will take on Belt Sanders. And so there you go. Those are the matchups for this week. Exciting.
Yeah, like I said, why this is why we do this. That's why we play fantasy football for it. Whether it's trying to already being in the playoffs or fighting for that last playoff spot. Why we do it. It makes you hate. It makes you love and hate life at the same time. It's good stuff.
So, Mikey, if you beat me in this Super Bowl, how will you celebrate?
I don't think I will.
You're not
I'm
going to
a
have
pretty
confetti?
humble guy.
I don't know about that. You're a quiet guy. I call you humble. But you're not going to throw out some confetti out of your pocket or rub your butt in my face or
start playing some music.
Drink beer in front of me. I know you're not a big beer drinker, but
no. But I do have to ask you this:
Sure.
what would be worse for you? The feeling of me knocking you out of the playoffs, or Aaron winning his third title in a row, or both.
Ooh.
Well, both would obviously be horrible. But if you're asking me if I had to choose between Aaron winning another one and me getting into the playoffs,
Well, I'm saying no. It's not. It's not.
well, I mean,
Aaron.
hypothetically, I'm not saying, but I mean, what would I rather if I had the decision to make, whether I could lose and not be in the playoffs and make sure Aaron doesn't win, and this is all hypothetical. Obviously, it doesn't matter. But if I could not allow Aaron to win, but I would have to not make the playoffs, I'd probably not pick the playoffs.
Even if it's me that knocks you out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would be out. I would fall on the sword as long as Aaron didn't win.
All right.
And the reason why I say that is because if I knew McCaffrey was back and I had him, then I would maybe take that chance. Now, obviously, I would take that chance, but I hate to see Aaron win.
Well, yeah, three in a row. We'd almost have to.
I feel like my team, if it's at full strength, it's a good team.
Yeah.
Allen, McCaffrey, Swift, Tyreek Hill, whatever whatever wide receiver of the week is. And I'm one of the better tight ends, so I feel like I have a good team. I just gotta get them there.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think So I mean, I would take the playoff spot and hope. So that'll do it, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on. 1 week left to go. Week 13 coming up, and remember, no Thursday night game. Sunday games. We have 2 Monday night football games, and we have a Tuesday game. So keep those players ready. You never know when COVID's going to hit. For Mikey Renaud, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.